Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Gardening is one big experiment, and with the experiments comes lots of questions. Today we're answering some of them. It's the Q&A show next on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. It's summer, and with it comes lots of plant problems. We have received many viewer questions about summer garden problems, and this week we're going to spend the whole show answering them. We'll start off with a question about the bane of many gardeners, Japanese beetles. How do I keep Japanese beetles away from my roses? And this is Joy, so we're gonna let you dive right on in, man.
Okay. So Japanese beetles, introduced beetle, right?
Okay.
It can cause a lot of havoc to a lot of different plants.
Yes, they can.
Two things you don't want to do to get rid of them.
Okay.
First, I don't recommend using the Japanese beetle traps.
Neither do I.
They use pheromones, and there's some studies that suggest they actually attract the Japanese beetles to that area. So the second thing is in line with that as well. Don't squish them because they can release that same pheromone and it's going to draw more of them in. So the things that you want to do early morning, late evening when they're most active, brush them off the plant, get them in some soapy water. That's what I would recommend.
That's what I would do. What about you, Jessie?
That's exactly what I would do.
That's exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Japanese beetles are tough.
They are. Now there's some other things too you can do, like companion planting.
Sure.
Things like catnip and chives and garlic can sometimes keep them away. If you can plant some of those around your roses, that could be beneficial as well.
Right. And the thing about the roses, though, if they're healthy roses, they can withstand the damage, though.
Yeah.
They really can. There is something else I know that you could do. I don't know if I would necessarily do it if you have pollinating plants, but you can cover them with a thin netting. But of course, if you have pollinating plants, you have to release that so they can be pollinated.
Sure.
But
Right.
yeah, there are some people that do that, use
Okay.
a thin netting. Some years you have more populations of Japanese beetles than others.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of nuts, anything happens. But Japanese beetles are tough.
Yes.
I will say that we have a few native roses.
Okay.
The Carolina rose, I've never seen a Japanese beetle on that. So
Interesting.
I don't know. Could replace all your roses with
How about that?
native roses.
How about that? Yeah. And no problems with the Japanese beetles. All right. I have two huge live oaks full of resurrection ferns. Do the ferns hurt the trees? And this is Mike from Poplarville, Mississippi. What do you think about that? You know anything about the resurrection ferns?
Well, resurrection ferns are epiphytes.
Yeah.
So they are in a symbiotic relationship with the tree. They do not hurt the tree.
Right.
No.
So they're
they
not
do not.
parasitic.
No.
Right? They're not robbing the tree of
No.
any nutrients or anything like that.
No.
Okay. But it was mentioned that frequently large sections of the bark, have dirt that are falling from it. So what do you think about that? Could that just be a squirrel running
Yeah,
through the
I was
tree,
thinking
just
it's got
knocking
to be
off the large
something
bark?
disturbing it because there is
Birds.
no indication that resurrection ferns ever harm the tree,
Yeah.
which would mean rotting and taking off the bark.
Right.
My thought was that it's got to be some animal disturbing
That's
it.
what I think,
And certain times of year, squirrels and birds dig and try to get materials for their nests. And I can imagine the ferns and the way that they are eating, that they are living on the tree branch, that it would be a nice soft material for something to put
can see that.
in their
Yeah,
nest.
I can see
So
that.
I think it was an animal of some kind,
That's
a
what I think as
bird
well.
that disturbed it, that made it fall down.
Right. Do you believe the ferns are keeping the bark wet and making it rot?
Well, it might be keeping the bark wet, but I don't think it's rotting it.
Okay. I don't think so
Because
either.
one thing about resurrection ferns, this is how they got their name. Science has found that they can dry up and stay in a dry state for over 100 years. And when you put water back on them and they get moisture, they come back
they
to
come
life.
back to life. Right.
So that's why they got their name.
Right.
So they can take some pretty droughty conditions and they're not going to go away.
Right.
But in the nice spring and it's wet outside, I'm sure it's still nice and moist around where
sure
they're
it
living
is.
on the bark.
Right.
But it's not supposed to harm the tree.
Right, yeah, they're just collecting the moisture from the air.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be a problem. But going back to the large chunks that are falling from the
Yeah.
tree. I mean, we're thinking that's probably.
I think it's an animal. It's something mechanical that did it. I don't
Yeah.
think it's anything that's wrong with the tree.
Yeah, I don't think the resurrection ferns are causing that
No.
at all. Right. Yeah, so just enjoy them. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, they're beautiful. What is a recommended schedule for watering outdoor succulents in pots during our excessive temperatures? I am currently watering monthly, and they are at least surviving. No growth though, and this is Harriet. So you think about watering those
my goodness.
succulents in this extreme heat.
I think I would water them a little bit more than that. I'm thinking maybe we'll try once a week, not once a month. And of course, it depends on where she's got them sitting too. If they're in a shady area, that's one thing. But I'd say the lack of watering is why they're not growing anymore.
Mr. D, I see you
I
shaking
agree.
your head.
I agree with you, Joellen. My wife waters ours
Oh, there you go.
more than once a month,
Yeah.
probably more than once a week,
Uh-oh.
and they are thriving. They are growing.
And it also depends on where it is, because if she's on a shady porch in an urban setting, you might not need to water it
Right.
more often. But once a month, I think, is not enough with our heat.
With a succulent, I'd probably rather water on the. You don't want to water too much.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
I'd rather go a little less because it stores water in the leaves and all that. But a lot more often than once a month, I think.
Yeah.
You know, what's the rule of thumb with them? Let the soil get dry and then water.
Yeah.
And water good.
Yeah.
Don't just do a light water and water, soak it and then let
it
it
go.
dry out. And
Yeah, the key is
with that.
to make sure that the temperature the moisture level in the soil is not too high.
right.
Right.
It doesn't stay too high.
Right.
It's got to dry out between waterings. And she can use a water meter, or she can use, touch it with her fingers and about an inch down. And you just monitor it,
Yeah. Don't overwater your root rot.
but more than once a month, I think.
More than once a month. I would agree with that. Hey, and we just found out something. Mr. D know how to water a succulent.
I
Did we-
love that.
My
Did you
wife,
like that?
Laura, knows how to
Hey,
water
Ms.
a
Laura,
succulent.
thank you, Ms. Laura, for
Yeah.
watering that succulent, Mr. D. there. My ginkgo lived in a huge pot for 3 years. I transplanted it this year in April, and it looks healthy and is producing new leaves, but all the leaves hang downward from branches that look great and pointing upward. Why is this happening? And this is Millie from Kilgore, Texas. So it's,
wow.
Yeah, so
I
again,
saw the picture, Ted.
downward.
She's right. They're all drooping.
Yeah, they are. So what do you think about that, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how long she's had it,
Right.
from the pot to the, what'd she say, April?
Yeah, April.
So I don't know when she sent this picture and
Right.
stuff. But it could be just transplant shock, but when leaves wilt on a plant, it's typically a root problem. She may have cut off a lot of the roots or damaged the roots. Or when I looked at the soil around the plant, it looked pretty wet.
Well,
She may have overwatered, and that can cause, the drooping of the leaves, which people think, oh, it's dry, I need to water it, but really you're killing the roots by them being in sodden soil or
Right.
wet soil.
Yeah, she may have
So-
been used to it being in a container.
Right, 'cause it
And
did,
watering
yep.
the
Yeah.
watering scheme
Right.
in the
Yeah.
container.
That's a good point.
And it was a very, very hot summer, so she
Yeah.
may have watered it much.
Too
One
much.
thing that I was concerned about is that she may have planted it a little too low. Because it looked, even though it was dark, it looked like it was a little low. And I tend to plant trees and shrubs just slightly up above the soil
'Cause they're gonna
level.
sink a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah. And I maybe that's what she could try if it's a little low. A lot of people plant them and then put dirt over the top, and that's fine, but it needs to be a little higher, a little bit higher in the ground, like a
Right.
couple of inches, and then put soil and mulch up over the top of it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I didn't see either is mulch, and I think that
Yeah.
would would help too.
You're right.
Right.
No mulch, but yeah, it definitely looked like to me it was planted too deep because I didn't see any root flares.
Yeah.
And then you're right, it was pretty wet.
It
You know,
was
looked
pretty
like from the
wet.
picture.
Yeah, and she made a good point about it being cultured in a pot, and then
Yeah,
her
yeah,
obviously
that's
having
good.
to water it more.
That's right.
And she may have just continued that, you know, that type of
That is
care, and that maybe did it. So maybe she just needs to back off the watering a little bit and make sure it's not too low.
Make sure it's
and
not
then mulch it.
put
Yeah.
too deep and get some mulch. How do I get thicker aloe vera leaves? This is Tony from South Haven, Mississippi. She says that her aloe vera plants have long, thin leaves without much gel. So guess what, Tony? I know somebody here who actually has an aloe vera plant. We're
Yes.
gonna find out how you thicken those leaves up, right? Huh? Did I give you the aloe vera
Yes,
plant?
yes. Well, you know what? I think we got it here somehow.
I think we did, yeah.
But it was thin, like you said, a small
Mm-hmm.
little. I mean, we're talking maybe a 2-inch container.
Yeah.
It was just a little start of one, and I took it home and potted it up. I've had it for years in my east-facing window, and it has gotten large and thick, so thick that I had to cut it off because it was knocking over the pot.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, in the container. So I had to start over again, and I stuck that outside, and it's rooting outside now.
How about that? Okay.
But it's big and thick, yes. Yeah, but time. It just takes time
Okay.
for them to get that way. And the larger it gets, you're going to have to move it up into a larger
Yeah, that's what I was
container
thinking,
and move it
yeah.
into a larger container. But since I have it on the windowsill, which is where I wanted it, it just simply got too big for that. So I have to start over again. And like I said, it's coming out from the root systems now. So it's possible.
So it is possible. So definitely make sure we get enough sunlight. You know,
Yeah,
something
enough
I thought
sunlight.
about.
My east-facing window seems to get the right amount of light for it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, sunlight is important. Yeah, up potting. Yeah, let those roots kind of spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, gather those nutrients, and it'll get thicker, Tony. It'll get
It
thicker.
will.
Yeah, we
It
have
will.
evidence of that. I have Persian lilac that has never bloomed. I made sure to not give it too much nitrogen and no grass clippings. It faces south. This winter we had a lot of rain, 36 inches. The average is only 15 inches. Still no blooms. We're talking 20 years.
Wow.
My last and only hope is to transplant it to the front yard in full sun, even though the current condition is 6+ hours a day. I have never pruned it. What can I do to get my Persian lilac to bloom? Any ideas? This is Catherine from Southern California. She does give us the zone 9B, and this is on Facebook. So how about that?
Wow.
So very detailed. We have the zone. It's 20 years.
20 years.
Never bloomed.
Gorgeous
Hadn't been pruned.
green shrub, but
Yeah.
never bloomed. Well, you know, I would leave it where it is.
Okay, so you leave it.
6 hours is considered full sun.
Okay, so it's enough.
It's enough. So
enough.
that's not the problem.
Okay.
Getting more sun is not going to help her any.
All right.
Most lilacs like cool temperatures to be able to set blooms. And she might be, in fact, there's some publications that say that there are no lilacs that will bloom in zones 8 through 9. But there are some that say that they will bloom in those zones. And so I would kind of look for some of those varieties that they're talking about for warmer climates, like Lavender Lady, Blue Skies, Miss Kim, and Angel White.
Oh, sounds good. Okay.
But they do also like a pH of 7, a real alkaline soil.
Okay.
So she might try that just to see what the pH is around it.
Okay.
And if she has to, you might put some lime down. If it's not more of a sweet soil, being 7 or a little higher.
Okay. So getting the soil tested, you know, we'll let you know, Miss Catherine,
What your pH is.
what your pH is.
Yeah, that could be a start.
Okay.
Also, there's an International Lilac Society.org.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And so, you know, go on that and see if they call it California lilacs, but it's a completely different type of plant. It's not, but go on to International Lilac Society and get on their form and ask them a question about if there's anybody else in California that has lilacs that are blooming. And maybe she knows somebody who has some that are blooming and hers are not. And that could be a pH problem. But I'm really thinking that might be that it's not getting enough cool temperatures to set blooms.
Okay, so we're thinking cool temperatures, okay, and pH.
And the pH.
And pH. I have a problem with my Mexican petunia. I think it may be a fungus. What do I need to do? And this is Orlando on YouTube. So you know a little bit about the Mexican petunia?
Yeah, the Ruellia bretoniana.
Yeah.
And actually, it's invasive, considered an invasive species,
okay.
especially in Florida and other states.
Okay.
It is a little bit here because I know people that have it and they get a lot of it because it reseeds itself very readily.
All right.
And he's having problems with it.
Yeah, with fungus.
It could be that it's in a really wet area and maybe it doesn't like it there.
Maybe.
Maybe it's in a zone that's a little high for it, that it's not appropriate for it. It's at the edge of one of its zones that it lives in. I don't know because.
Especially without a picture. It's
Yeah,
kind of hard to tell.
it's hard to tell, and but be careful you might see if it's invasive in your state to not plant it. But if it's having problems, try to raise it up a little bit and give it a little better drainage, maybe
better
environmentally.
Good air circulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because petunias, a couple of things that come to mind that we talked about earlier. Botrytis blight, is something that comes to mind. And powdery mildew is something
that's
else,
true.
that
When
comes
it's
to
too
mind.
wet,
It's wet, if it's too wet, right?
Too humid out.
Right.
Yeah.
Humidity is a big part of powdery mildew. But yeah, so if they're crowded, which they probably are because they can be invasive, those are the two that come to mind to me, botrytis blight or the powdery mildew. Culturally, all the things that you mentioned.
Yeah, just raise them up.
Raise them up, good air
divide them.
circulation.
Yeah.
Do things like that. If you have to use a fungicide, there are some out there that you can use. Read and follow the label. Daconil is one that you can use.
Yes.
Sulfur is one that you can use. And neem oil is another one that comes to mind that you can use as well. But read and follow the label on that. Okay?
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's make sure we get the fungus identified, right? So we
Right.
can use the right methods to control it. But culturally, let's do those things.
Yeah.
I have some zinnias with powdery mildew. Should I pull them so it doesn't spread or clip just the offshoots that have it? This is Deetra72 on YouTube. So, Doc, zinnias and powdery mildew. Who knew, right?
Yeah. Powdery mildew. Well,
Powdery
I know
mildew.
powdery mildew, but they look really sad. Zinnias get leaf spot. They
Oh,
get
yes.
all these things
Yes.
late in the summer, like we are right now, going into fall and winter. And she could do either or,
Okay.
as far as
Either
I'm
or.
concerned.
Okay.
She could cut them all back and fertilize them and let them maybe come back because we are several weeks from, getting really, really cold weather. So
Okay,
maybe they can come back. Or she can spray them with something like chlorothalonil,
Right.
which is supposed to control powdery mildew.
Right.
So I would just yank them all up. Save my seed maybe from some of them, but this time of year, you got to think about, it's the end of the season. Do I want to dedicate a lot of time to these that are only going to be around for not very long and put out a bunch of pesticides and things that, you really don't need this time of year?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. What do you think about that, Joelle?
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
mean, and it also depends on how bad they are. I mean, she says to cut out some of them. Well, is it just a few of them that have it?
Yeah.
And if it is, then I would cut those out. But then I would spray fungicide preventatively
To prevent the new from
on the others.
Right.
And she could have flowers clear through, till frost.
Yeah.
That's another good
It's-
suggestion.
Because they come back pretty quickly,
Yeah, they do.
you know.
That would be good. If you're going to use fungicide, please read and follow the label. I think you'd be fine with that. But yeah, culturally, maybe, to get some good air, circulation.
True,
in there, dry
that's
those
true,
leaves
yeah,
off.
true.
Where are they? Are they located near a wall or something like that?
Yeah.
Good
So those
point,
are kind of
yep.
things I would think about, as well. When should I expect my 6-year-old hazelnut trees to start producing nuts? And this is Karen from King William County, Virginia, right?
Wow.
So yeah, we know that Karen has 2 trees. And she noticed that the the catkins in the fall. So we know that catkins are male flowers.
Right.
Right? Because she wondered, are these male trees? So, yeah, but they're not producing nuts. So what do you think about that?
Well, they're very interesting. And the flowers, the female part of this process
Right.
is very inconspicuous on the stem near the catkins. There is a bright red or almost magenta color, just dot. You know, if you're not looking for it, you
wouldn't
won't
see it,
see them. But anyway, and this is the problem. I know she's got two trees,
2 trees.
but are they the same tree?
Right.
Because recommendation is you have 3 different kind of hazelnuts that will cross-pollinate each other.
Right.
And it says that
key.
you need that many
Yep.
to get the nuts from them. So
Right.
cross-pollination is really, really important.
Right.
But if hers two, and if she has 2 different ones, then my question is, are they in a lot of sun?
Yeah.
How far apart are they? Because the recommendation is 15 feet apart. So that would be my, and if she has 2, well, then maybe she needs to find a 3rd one.
Yeah.
Because they are supposed to be starting to produce the acorns or the hazelnuts 2 to 3 years after they start blooming. So, and they're not big trees. They're more bushy than they are actual trees. So it would be interesting to see. Now, there's a lot of websites that have these different kinds, and they'll have a chart with some of them over here and some of them up here, and they have them starred or wherever they cross-pollinate each other. And so you can kind of get different kinds and know you have 3 different kinds that do actually cross-pollinate each other.
Yeah, again, that's going to be so important. So,
Yes.
yeah, Karen, I would check with my local extension office. So maybe they have a publication.
They
about
might, yes.
hazelnuts and growing them in your, backyard, and have some of these plants that we're talking about, those varieties for cross pollination.
Yes,
right?
I think
because these are wind pollinated.
Yes.
Right. So
they
that's why
need more.
cross-pollination is so
They
important.
need more. She needs more variety than
Yeah.
just 2, and hopefully the 2 are different. But if they're
I think
not,
they
then
are.
she needs 2 different ones.
Right. Yeah, because you should see nuts
should-
after
you
6
should-
years.
yes.
Right.
After
Full
6
production is usually 7 to 8 years out.
Right.
But yeah, you can see
she
nut
should-
production in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just hoping that we have the right varieties.
And
to
hopefully they're
cross-pollinate.
close enough together.
Yes, and I hope they're close enough together in full sun. In full sun. Should an asparagus patch be mulched, and with what type of mulch? And this is Steve from Michigan. So Walter, should they be mulched?
Oh yes, it's no problem at all. Particularly if you put, some real good compost, you can mulch with that. And I also advise people to even put straw down if they want to put straw. Some people even put wood chips, and it depends on where you get your wood chips.
Right.
But make sure it's not some treated type wood chip. But any kind of compost, straw, that'll work fine. Yes. I'd say probably about 3-4 inches. And I think you'll be fine with that.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that? We had a discussion
Yes,
about that
but
earlier.
I
'Cause
have.
you know a little bit about that, right?
I have a whole 100-foot row that I planted
Goodness.
100 asparagus in, and I mulched it with grass clippings because we don't treat our yard or
Okay.
anything. So I just mulched it with our grass clippings, and the next, you did fine for a year or 2, and then the voles found it.
Right.
And the mulch layer seemed to attract them more to eating and being comfortable eating all winter long on the roots of my asparagus. So the next year I took the mulch away after the season was over, so it overwintered without mulch on it, and I had less voles eating my asparagus.
So a hiding place and a buffet all at the same
Yep,
time.
hiding
yes,
place
that
and
happens,
buffet.
right? Yeah.
Nice
All right.
place to overwinter.
Nice place to overwinter. All right. So, Mr. Steve, if you can use the straw, and
Yes.
those things that Walter recommended, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah,
I think you'll be
but
fine.
mulching is great to keep the
Mulching is
weeds
good.
down.
Yes, for
Very
sure.
good.
What is this tree that looks like it has blackberries on it? And this is Joe. So what do you think about that one, Rosa?
I think that's a mulberry. That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you
So
think,
yes, so
Joseph?
it's a mulberry
Yeah,
tree.
it's a
It is.
mulberry tree.
Yeah, it's a mulberry
Yeah.
tree. So what do you
I mean, they're common around this area.
They are.
Mid-South, and you know, they're a tree, and they're berries, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they are native, you know, to
They're
North
native,
America, to Asia. They're actually, you know, good tree for wildlife, because the berries, of course, are edible, you know, for, you know, birds, possums, squirrels, and things like that. You see them pretty often, you know, here, you know, in Memphis, you know, in Shelby County where we are. But I like the leaves, so I can just look at the leaf and tell you what it is, right? Because you know, the leaves almost look like little mitts.
Mittens.
You know, they're usually like 3 lobes. They're kind of heart-shaped a little bit. They have those tooth edges, you know, to them. So I think it's pretty distinct leaves on the Morris species, right? Which are those mulberry.
Right.
So you're exactly right, Rosa.
Exactly.
Some mulberry. So yeah, let the wildlife enjoy those, all right? Should I do a soil test after adding garden soil and bag manure to my garden? And this is David from Millington, Tennessee. So what do you think about that one, Kyle?
Well, I would do
Good
it
question.
before you add any
Okay.
type of nutrients, either whether it's manure or anything else, to get a more accurate test. And
Get a baseline, I guess.
Yeah,
to start with.
yeah, that'd be one thing, get a baseline. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, well, definitely, you know, you might not need to add, organic materials, a lot of them tend to be acidic. So if you have like alkaline soils, we don't have a lot of alkaline soils here in Shelby County, but if you lived in a part of the country where you had alkaline soils, adding that organic material a lot of times will acidify the soil and help correct some of the problems. So I would get that baseline and then you might want to test it afterwards, right?
I would definitely
Before
test-
and after.
I would do before and after. I
Yeah.
sure would. Yeah, get your soil tested. Don't get soil tests. Come by the extension office, pick up a soil test kit. We'll help you out. So
It's
thank you
easy.
for-
It's easy.
It's easy. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. To get more information on anything we talked about, go to familyplotgarden.com. We have all these questions listed on the homepage. Thanks for watching and sending in the questions. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.